since he's been with a woman. But she is a pretty girl. She's a very attractive woman. So when McAllister returns to the Hale Estates, Maris is there. And she's brought the cat Lucifer with her. So she lets McAllister know that the cat isn't doing too well in their new place. So Royce and Maris, they've moved out of the estate and they have an apartment that's in Boston closer to headquarters. And so the cat isn't doing too well. It has like patches of fur. It's like, pulled off, and it's not, doing too well with the new apartment. And McAllister's just like, okay, what does that have to do with me? And she's like, well, this is its home, And he's like, but that's Royce's cat. That's not mine. So she's like, all right, let's play for it. So, of course, being that he loves to play a good game of chess, he was all open to it. Vance has also moved out of the house. So literally McAllister's is the only person there. He has like a little staff there, but he's the only person there. So it's lonely. So they played a game of chess, and Maris actually wins. But I think McAllister let her win so that cat could stay. Because I think he kind of did miss the cat. And clearly the cat was like right at home. And it was the right thing to do. So the next day, there's going to be different board members coming to the home for a game of skeet. And McAllister's kind of upset because someone pulls up and this black BMW. And he's like, who is this? And he's like pissed. Actually, I think it was silver. I can't remember. I think it was silver. But this BMW pulls up and he's pissed. And he's like, who is this just coming up to my home? And Sophia gets out. And so McAllister's like, okay, what is she doing here? And Royce is like, I invited her. And he's like, okay. So Sophia asks, do the women shoot? And they're like, no, normally the women, Maris is like, no, normally we don't do that. We let the guys do that. We go elsewhere. So she came with her gun and she's all set. And she's like, well, I'd like to do it, And so McAllister asked her, has she ever used the gun that she was holding? And she said no, which was kind of true to an extent. But the truth is, she's a whole almost Olympian. She didn't qualify for the team, but she almost made it to the Olympics. And so McAllister starts off, he's doing his thing. He notices something's off with her. Let me note this first because she's looking like way too prepared. She's got her gloves. She's got the shoes. She's like, so he knows, oh, wait a minute, I think I've been played. So she wasn't lying. She hadn't shot that gun before. It was a brand new gun. But she clearly knew the game. So it threw him off, and he missed some of the skeets. He missed a couple of them. Whereas Sophia had the whole stance together, and she nailed all 25 of them. And so before that was the deal that she had made. If I beat you, then I get to be your assistant. And she won. So the next day, Sophia goes to his office and they're hashing out, the plan. And so basically she wants, of course, for him to be seen in like a better light. And she feels that, with her doing all of this, let's talk about some good compensation. So McAllister's like, all right, $100,000. And Sophia's like, no, that's not going to work. And because she'd already told him, it's not about the money for her. Clearly there's a vendetta she has with someone, but he just doesn't know who it is yet. And he said, but I thought it wasn't about the money for you. So, and you said money wasn't an issue. Like, you have plenty of money. So what's the thing? So she goes, $5 million. That's going to be my counter offer. And he's like, no, 100,000. But then he caves a little. He says, I'll give you the remaining $5 million upon the release of the book. And if I'm satisfied with the content, then I'll give you the rest. So she agrees to that. So the first step of the plan is that she needs to get him a new woman. So she knows there's someone named Evangeline Gabbard whose husband died like a year ago, like that previous year, in a plane crash. And so her foundation is saddled with a lot of debt. So she'll need his help. And she's also age appropriate. She's about 47. So Sophia tells him, if you get involved with her, that'll help you kind of get back into society's inner circle again. So next couple of days, Sophia goes over to the Hale estate to go over some things with McAllister. He gives her access to the security system so she can come and go as she needs. And he asks her to stay for dinner, since he's always home by himself. And I think even though he thought he wanted to be by himself, he really doesn't. And I think that's why he does like her company. And so they have a little dinner and they have a little banter back and forth. And she talks to him about his date tomorrow with Evangeline. And so she lets him know that, you should give her a kiss so that way people know it's an actual date and not just like a business meeting. And so she tells him, I've already let Evangeline know that it's coming, so she'll be prepared for it. Because I'm quite sure, Evangeline hasn't kissed anyone. She's still very much, hung up on her husband. The man just died. It's not like he's been gone for a long time. And so McAllister's like, it's been a while for me since I've kissed a woman, but I think I can remember. He grabs Sophia and kisses her, and it takes the breath out of that girl. And she's like, oh my gosh. And it got so intense that they wound up on the couch, and they both were kind of like, oh shoot, like what just happened? And she's like trying to make a joke of it, and Sophia's like, yeah, well, don't do that. That might be a little too much. It might scare her off. So the next day, it's date time with Evangeline. Sophia helps him get ready. He normally is in control of everything, but she kind of lets him know, okay, that's a little too stuffy. Take that off, put this on. Just trying to get him to look a little more relaxed. And at first he doesn't like it, but he knows she is trying to help him. And of course, he's still very much affected by that kiss from the night before. He wants to grab and kiss her, but he doesn't do it. And she's hoping he will do it too, because you got to remember, Sophia has had a crush on this man since forever. She always thought he was the hottest hell. So she was just in dreamland when that man kissed her. So he leaves. He goes to dinner with Evangeline. And Evangeline, he meets her at the restaurant. And when he shakes her hands are kind of clammy because she's super nervous. And she tells him that. And she's like, I'm so sorry. She's like, but this is like the first time I've been out, since my husband died. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be so nervous. And so he calms her a little bit, and he lets her know. He kind of lies a little to her and says, well, I'm kind of nervous too. I'm nervous enough for both of us, so it's okay. And that helps her to relax just a little bit. So she starts to tell him, how much she really appreciates what he's going to do for her. And he's just kind of looking at her like, what is this is just a date. Like, but he doesn't say anything, but he's starting to look confused. And then she lets him know, yeah, me and your assistant, we went over everything yesterday, and she told me that you're all in for the bachelor's auction. And he was like, oh, well, I guess I'm confused. He's like, is like my Vance is gonna do it, or because he's thinking in his brain, there's no way I'm doing a bachelor auction, and there's no way this woman signed me up for this and I didn't comply. I didn't say I would do it. And so she's like, no, she said you were gonna do it. And he's like, oh, it could have just been a miscommunication. It's okay. I apologize. He's like, yeah, whatever I can do to help. So as they leave from, the restaurant, Evangeline lets him know, this was nice. I think, thank you. I appreciate it. And they talk a little bit about, their spouses. And she was saying how a lot of her friends have tried to, like, get her to kind of get out there and date. And she's not ready. And she feels like she would be cheating on him because she's still very much in love with her husband. And so he tells her, don't you let anyone tell you what's an appropriate time and what you need to do, you know? He's like, my wife's been gone for a very long time, but, I still, drink myself into a stoop on the anniversary of her death. So you take as much time as you need for you. And she appreciated that. And so he went in. She was super nervous, but he just kissed her on like the cheek area, because she wasn't ready for a kiss on the mouth. So he just kissed her there, and that felt appropriate. And so that's what he did. And of course, there were people that, took pictures because the great McAllister is out on a date. Like, what's going on? So it worked. So as soon as he leaves the date, though, he calls Sophia and he's like, you better be at my house now. And so Sophia was home. She lives with her parents because she just feels like there's no purpose in me moving out. This is a huge home. I'm staying all the way over there. Like, I don't even bother you people. So, and it's rent free. So she doesn't feel the need to leave. So she doesn't. So she's home with her parents. And she gets that text message. And before she actually gets the text message, the phone call, her mother is trying to get her to quit the job because she's like, that is your dad's biggest client. Basically, that's the man that pays for all of this. That's where most of our money comes from, and you're gonna screw this up, and then your dad's gonna lose his job, and it's gonna be a whole problem. And she's like, no, that's not gonna happen. Stop being dramatic. It's not gonna happen. So Sophia gets that phone call and she shoots out of that house to get to McAllister's home. And when she gets there, he's upset with her. He's like, why didn't you tell me? I should have been more prepared. That shouldn't have caught me off guard. And she's like, I'm sorry, but I knew if I told you, you would just say no. So I figured if she said it to you and, she was convincing, it might get you to do it. And he's like, yeah, and I committed to it, And he let her know that he was upset with her and that, he called her a young lady. And she in turn called him daddy. And he got mad. And he tells her to lay across his lap. And so she's looking stunned and she's like, what? But she does it because you got to remember, she likes this man. Like, she's been crazy about this man. So she does it. So she lays across him. He smacks her on the butt the first time. It didn't do anything. And so she was just like, okay, whatever. And then he hits her again. And this time she feels it and she yells out. But it turns her on at the same time. So she's getting wet. So the way she said it, I guess he knew, like, oh, she does like this. So he pulls her skirt down and he puts his finger in her cooch. And she's soaking wet. But he also sees, I think it's called a VRU, which is a piercing for the vagina. And so he's like, wait a minute, what is this? And he's like, stand up and show it to me. So she shows it to him. And she's like, you're the first person to ever see it because she had just got it. And so he's completely turned on. He was turned on when he started to hit her. So he's like, you're going to give me a blowjob. And she does it. And she does it well. He even comes in her mouth, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. But it was like after that happened, he was like, he wanted to know, like, give me a name. And she was like, no, I'm not giving you a name. So he was like, if I can make you come, will you give me a name? She's like, listen, you can't make me come. And he's like, why are you so certain? And she's like, because listen, no guy I've ever been with has been able to make me come. I can only pretty much come by myself in a room when it's dark. So it's just not going to happen. She's like, there's something wrong with me. He's like, there's nothing wrong with you. He was like, it's been who you've been with. So he was like, I'll make a deal with you. If I can make you